While millions of people are willing to shout at their TV screens, paint their faces in team colors, and let their emotions rise and fall over the course of a single match, there is still a large group of people who remain completely indifferent to sports. They don't know what game was played last night, don't care who won or lost, and may even find it puzzling that others let a missed goal affect their mood for an entire week. Because of this, they are often labeled as dry, unpassionate, or unsociable. However, neuroscience and psychology offer a very different perspective. Not caring about sports is not a sign of emotional deficiency. It may reflect a brain that is organized differently. This is not a flaw, but a distinct psychological mode of functioning. And once you understand this, you may begin to view both sports fans and non-fans with a fairer and deeper understanding. Humans are, by nature, tribal beings. Throughout thousands of years of evolution, belonging to a group was not only emotionally meaningful, but essential for survival. Tribes helped people hunt, defend against enemies, and endure harsh environments. Today, although we no longer live in caves, this instinct remains deeply embedded in the brain. Sports have become a modern version of ancient tribal life. When cheering for a team, the brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, creating a feeling similar to being with family or close loved ones. This makes fans feel that they belong to something larger than themselves. Jerseys, symbols, chants, and anthems all reinforce this tribal identity. For many people, sports are not just entertainment, but a core part of who they are, a source of connection they may otherwise lack in daily life. In contrast, people who are not obsessed with sports often have what psychology calls a low tribal instinct. This does not mean they are selfish, distant, or cold. It simply means their sense of identity does not rely heavily on belonging to large groups. They rarely define themselves through ideas like my team, my side, or us in symbolic competitions. For them, fulfillment does not come from blending into a crowd, but from inner wholeness and intellectual autonomy. Many studies suggest this group is less prone to us versus them thinking, and less likely to form biases based solely on group affiliation. They do not need to pick a side to feel valued or complete. Instead of building identity around colors, symbols, or collective victories, they build it from personal values, lived experiences, and independent perspectives. This helps them stay emotionally steadier, less swept up by mass sentiment, and more capable of maintaining an independent view of social phenomena. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't need to belong to the crowd to feel complete, comment number 1 below the video. And if you've ever been called weird for not liking sports, share your experience in a comment. One major reason sports are so captivating lies in dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. While watching a game, fans experience a constant stream of small dopamine releases. Every play, every near miss, every scoring opportunity. The suspense before the outcome is decided is similar to opening a gift or placing a bet. Brain imaging studies show that when people watch their favorite team compete, reward-related areas of the brain activate almost as strongly as they do during gambling. The key factor is uncertainty. Not knowing the result keeps dopamine levels elevated. This is known as intermittent reward, the most addictive mechanism in psychology. For people who don't care about sports, their dopamine system simply doesn't respond to this kind of indirect stimulation. Their brains do not interpret someone else's victory as a personal reward. Interestingly, these differences are not shaped only by environment or life experience. Genetics may also play a role. Some studies suggest that variations in dopamine receptor genes directly influence how attracted people are to competitive, spectator-based activities. In other words, How much you care about a team winning or losing may already be partly programmed in your DNA. This explains why some people grow up in sports-obsessed families yet remain completely indifferent, while others become hooked after watching just one game. Not being interested in sports is not because you haven't watched enough or don't understand the rules. It may simply be that your brain is not designed to receive rewards from that type of experience. Understanding this can free you from forcing yourself to like what society treats as universal. Sports fans often experience a phenomenon known as basking in reflected glory. When their team wins, they say, "We won." When it loses, they say, "They lost." This shift in pronouns reveals the depth of emotional identification. The team's success becomes personal success, allowing fans to feel accomplished without directly achieving anything themselves. People who don't care about sports rarely engage in this mechanism. They tend to maintain a more stable personal identity and do not tie their self-worth to outcomes beyond their control. For them, success comes from direct effort, work, study, creativity, or relationships. As a result, they often enjoy greater emotional stability and are less shaken by symbolic wins and losses. An interesting paradox is that sports fans are often praised for empathy because they practice caring deeply about people they've never met. Athletes, coaches, and entire teams wearing the same colors. They feel pain when the team loses and joy when it wins, emotionally sharing every moment of the match. But this does not mean non-sports fans lack empathy. The difference lies in emotional allocation. Everyone has a limited emotional budget. People who don't care about sports often invest that emotional energy elsewhere. Deep personal relationships, art, music, nature, or social issues with direct human impact. Research suggests this group tends to score high in openness to experience, sensitivity to beauty, new ideas, and abstract values rather than victories or defeats. They still seek strong emotions, connection, and meaning, just not through scoreboards or stadiums. Their brains are chasing the same needs, but along a different path. If you feel more emotionally moved by music, art, or nature than by a match, comment number 2 below. Where do you invest most of your emotional energy in life? Share in the comments. For some people, indifference to sports is not purely biological, but shaped by personal experience. They may have been bullied in physical education classes, felt excluded by sports culture, or struggled with aggressive competitiveness. Ignoring sports becomes an unconscious way to protect themselves from feelings of inferiority or judgment. For others, it is a form of resistance against a culture that glorifies strength, dominance, and confrontation. And for some, sports are simply boring. None of these reasons are wrong. Every person has the right to choose where they invest their time and emotions. Not everyone needs to share the same interests to be considered normal. The biggest difference between sports fans and non-fans lies in how they search for meaning. Sports fans find meaning in narratives, underdogs rising, dramatic comebacks, loyalty, and rivalries that last decades. To them, sports are real-life drama. Non-fans, however, often see randomness in these outcomes and question why they should invest emotionally in something that doesn't directly affect their lives. They find meaning in areas they can actively shape and control. Building a career, creating art, nurturing relationships, or pursuing knowledge. Neither path is superior. They are simply two different routes toward the same deeply human need, to feel that life matters. Sports represent a form of parasocial investment, a one-sided relationship. Fans invest emotion, time, and loyalty, but have no real influence over the outcome. Non-sports fans often prefer direct engagement. They want to see that their effort genuinely affects results. They gravitate toward activities where their involvement creates change. A project, a relationship, a piece of work. This doesn't make them colder or more pragmatic. It simply reflects a preference for high interaction experiences. These two investment styles represent different life strategies. No better, no worse. If you don't care about sports, you're not missing a core human experience. You're not unpassionate, cold, or wired wrong. You are simply living life differently. Your brain is tuned to seek reward, meaning, and connection in places that don't rely on indirect competition. Your dopamine system may not light up at other people's victories, but it can surge when you complete a project, grasp a difficult idea, create something new, or build a deep relationship. In a society that often celebrates loudness, collectivity, and performative emotion, not blending into the crowd can make you feel out of place. Yet there is something quietly powerful about people who don't live on borrowed emotions. You don't spend 3 hours living inside someone else's story because you're busy living your own. You invest your emotional energy where your presence actually makes a difference. The next time someone asks, "Did you watch the game last night?" and you genuinely don't care, remember? You don't owe an explanation. You don't need to learn to like something just to fit in. You're not broken. You're not lacking. You're simply playing a different game, one that's quieter, less noisy, but perhaps far richer in depth, presence, and meaning.